Hello, it's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the man arrested at the scene of the crossbow attack in Leeds dies in hospital. Owen Lawrence, who was 38, died of self-inflicted injuries. 2 women were injured in the attack. Police are investigating social media accounts linked to Lawrence, including an apparent plan to attack people on the Otley Run pub crawl, posted hours before the incident unfolded. Also tonight, 2 men in court accused of a moronic mission to cut down the sycamore gap tree. Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers are accused of filming themselves felling the tree before keeping a wedge of the trunk as a trophy and then revelling in their infamy when the news broke the next day. We'll have the latest for you from Newcastle Crown Court. Plus, the Eden Project cancels a gig by Belfast rappers Kneecap as the backlash against the group continues. They have apologised for appearing to call on fans to kill MPs. However, Downing Street say their statement is half-hearted. And Kemi Badenoch says the group should be banned. I'll be speaking to Jo Cox's husband, Brendan. And a very warm welcome for the Prince and Princess of Wales as they mark their 14th wedding anniversary with a visit to the Isle of Mull. All that to come and much more in the UK Tonight. The man arrested at the scene of the crossbow attack in Leeds has died in hospital from self-inflicted injuries. 2 women were injured in the attack that happened on Saturday, one of them requiring surgery. Police believe 38-year-old Owen Lawrence was acting alone, and they are investigating Facebook posts linked to him. They include images of weapons and an apparent plan to kill people taking part in the Otley Run pub crawl. Our chief North of England correspondent, Greg Milam, has our first report tonight.
Hello everyone. So I've just finished George Orwell's Fascism and Democracy, written in 1941, published in 1945. It didn't take me too long to read it.
This is Owen Lawrence, the man police suspect of carrying out a crossbow attack on a university pub crawl and who himself ended up dead. Social media posts apparently linked to the 38-year-old feature images of weapons including a crossbow and rifles. There was also a rambling post laying out what he called an attack plan to kill people taking part in the Otley Run on Saturday. It was at that event that 2 women were injured. Police found a crossbow and a firearm, and Lawrence with a self-inflicted injury. A person was filmed apparently holding weapons in the area just before the attack. In his post, Lawrence referred to a spree killing, mass murder and terrorism motivated by revenge and misogynistic rage, among other things. In a statement, the head of counter-terrorism policing North East, Detective Chief Superintendent James Dunkerley, said, "We understand there are concerns around the incident and questions about how and why this has happened. Our teams are committed to carrying out an in-depth investigation to provide answers to those affected." One of the women who was injured has been released from hospital. The other is said to be in a stable condition. Police have asked anyone with information to contact them. What happened here on Saturday has once again put the focus on the apparent ease with which someone can get their hands on a crossbow. As with high-profile incidents in the past, it's led to questions about whether the law needs to be tightened for a weapon that it is perfectly legal to own and which can be bought with a few clicks online.
Right, so just a quick check-in everyone. I'm just sat home by myself on my Todd.
In his posts on social media, Lawrence says he's explored far-right ideas and conspiracy theories. Those posts are now a focus of the investigation. Police say they believe Lawrence was acting alone and that they're not looking for anyone else in connection with the attack. Greg Milam, Sky News, Leeds.
Well, we can now speak to former counter-terrorism national coordinator Nick Aldworth. Nick, good to see you tonight. Thank you for joining us on the programme. First of all, your thoughts on this case?
Look, it highlights something that we have been worried about now for several years, back as long as 2014, which is, the lone actor having been mobilised by sometimes a structured ideology, but what we're seeing more and more now are lone actors who are just mobilised to wanting to commit acts of violence for no apparent reason. Their ideology is unclear, it's mixed, it's often confused. This individual certainly is giving indications of, probably misogyny or some other, dislike of women. But it's so hard. Where do you start with protecting a street like this where these attacks have taken place?
Yeah, it does seem that these acts are on the increase. You say that it's something we've been worried about for some time, and it feels like we've been reporting on these kind of attacks on Sky News for some time. But the action to stop these kind of acts doesn't seem to have matched that worry. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, we're moving closer to that. So on the 3rd of April this year, the Terrorism Protection of Premises Act it received its royal assent. It will take a year or two for that act to really get itself going, but that is very much focused on individual premises taking responsibility for preparing for acts of terrorism and protecting their users from acts of terrorism. So it's a really, really positive step in the right direction. I think the fact that we're having this discussion and we're talking about the inadequacies or the limitations is a better word of prevent. We're talking about the prospect of new or different legislation to match what is fundamentally a seismic shift in how our society behaves. We seem to be radicalized online, out of sight of the authorities, motivated by things that 40 years ago we probably wouldn't have thought of at all.
Yeah. Every time an incident like this occurs, the question, what can be done, comes up. What can be done that is effective? Because not so long ago, there was the big debate about changing the definition of terror. That didn't happen. The government don't want to do that and explain their reasoning why. There was some public opinion that went against that. What are your thoughts? Do we actually need a new law, a new kind of terror bracket for these kind of attacks?
So I'm a great advocate of not diluting the Terrorism Act. We all understand what terrorism is. And I think if you start trying to shoehorn other violent incidents into the Terrorism Act, it will start to lose some of its potency. It's a good piece of legislation, the Terrorism Act, and it's well structured. What I think we do have is a gap. For example, you can sit at home and you can plan to murder somebody, and as long as you don't involve anybody else in that plan, that might make it a conspiracy, or you don't take that plan forward or attempt it, you're not committing any criminal offences. But what we are starting to see is these people sitting at home and thinking about how they would do these things, what materials will they need? How will they acquire those materials? And going some considerable way towards committing these offences, and then in some cases going forward and committing them. We need to be able to exercise more control around people. If we look at the attacker in Southport and similar vein, the attacker at Forbury Gardens in Reading some years ago, these were both individuals who were well known to the authorities, but we didn't seem to have the right control mechanisms around them, either statutory mechanisms that are aligned to the criminal system or mental health restrictions that come under the Mental Health Act. There's a big grey area here that I think as a society we've got to explore. Are we going to be tolerant of people sitting in that grey area and us not being able to manage them?
Yeah, this gap to be filled by, as you said, some kind of new legislation, new statutory mechanisms, new restrictions. Would the main aim be as a deterrent or harsher punishment? Because these kind of attacks, it's hard to see in so many cases how they could have been stopped. Because as you rightly pointed out, these are individuals that do this solo, behind closed doors.
Legislation has all of those purposes. It has the purpose to act as a deterrent, and in some cases it has the purpose of being a preventative measure. I think whatever new legislation looks like, if that's the course that this government takes, and this government's been pretty proactive around bringing forward new terrorism-aligned legislation, whatever legislation looks like, it does need to fill both those needs. The preventative need, some form of exercising control over individuals that currently are uncontrolled, and a deterrent to stop people from going along that course. Of course, if people go forward and commit their offences, then there are existing offences on the statute books for that, murder obviously being the obvious one.
Yep. Nick, a final question. A police investigation underway. We understand that they're looking at his social media posts about guns, some evidence, video perhaps, of him plotting and planning to attack a local pub crawl. These kind of acts, you see them as pursuing violence without a cause. But a lot of this does happen in the open. The clues are there on social media, but social media is so rife with this kind of stuff. It's really difficult to determine who is going to act on what they are posting and who isn't. That's the real difficulty here, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and I think we need better statutory frameworks around the material that is floating around online. My plea to all those people out there who do see this stuff is to report it, and nobody's going to think of you as being silly if you see something you don't like or you're worried about and you report it. You'll be thanked for it, quite frankly.
Yeah, but report it to who, Nick? That's the problem, isn't it? Because we talk about this grey area. Is it go straight to the police?
Yeah, report it to the police, unambiguously report it to the police. They will find the right route for dealing with that. And of course, the police are not omnipotent. We have an amazing internet referral unit that's very, very focused on bringing down terrorist material. We have, child exploitation units that are brilliant at bringing down, sexually exploitative material from the internet. But what we can't see is, or what they can't see, is every piece of material that's out there. So we really do need, much in the same way as you would report, somebody climbing over a fence into your neighbour's back garden to commit a burglary, we do need people to be aware that this material has consequence. It causes harm. And if we see it, we need to report it.
Nick, really good to talk to you tonight. Nick Aldworth there, former UK Counter-Terrorism National Coordinator. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a senseless crime that shocked the country, and today it was alleged that the two men accused of cutting down the famous Sycamore Gap tree filmed themselves doing so. Newcastle Crown Court heard Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers also kept part of the landmark as a trophy of what prosecutors have called a moronic mission. They have both pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of criminal damage. And North of England correspondent Shingi Marike is at Newcastle Crown Court.
Today, the prosecution alleged that Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers took part in a moronic mission. That mission, according to them, was driving from Cumbria in Graham's Range Rover and then parking up and cutting the Sycamore Gap. They said that the technique they used showed expertise and a determined, deliberate approach to felling the tree. They say that they marked out the intended cut with spray paint before cutting out a wedge that would dictate the direction that the tree would fall. We were then told that a video was taken on Graham's phone. We were shown that video in court today. It's a clip just short of 3 minutes in which you can hear the sound of a chainsaw and see what appears to be a tree being felled. And at that moment, both the defendants showed no emotion. They were impassive as that video was shown. We also heard how photographs and 2 short videos were taken on Graham's mobile telephone, which showed a piece of wood next to a chainsaw in the boot of Graham's Range Rover, which the prosecution are suggesting were trophies taken from the scene to remind them of their actions that the prosecution said they appeared to be reveling in. Then they spoke about the dialogue between the pair after the incident and the fact that they had spoken over message and over voice notes about the media coverage that the case was beginning to take up and the fact that it had been covered by a number of media outlets. And then the prosecution tried to prove how the pair were friends and that they had expertise in cutting trees together, saying that they had the skills and the tools to cut down large trees because Graham ran a groundworks company while Carruthers worked in property maintenance and mechanics. And the court was shown another video of the pair cutting down a different tree around a month before the Sycamore Gap was felled. And they said that it is clear that these were men in the business of cutting down trees. Now, this is a trial that is listed to last 10 days, and both of them deny the charges against them.
The Eden Project in Cornwall has cancelled a performance by the Belfast rap group Kneecap. This was after they were accused of calling on fans to kill MPs. The group apologised to the families of Jo Cox and Sir David Amess last night, an apology that has been described as half-hearted by Downing Street. And Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has gone even further, calling for the group to be banned. Well, NECAP have been criticised for appearing to promote Hamas and Hezbollah, and footage has emerged from a gig back in November 2023 where one of the band appears to say, "The only good Tory is a dead Tory. Kill your local MP." Labour MP Jo Cox was fatally shot and stabbed in June 2016, while Conservative MP Sir David Addis was killed at a constituency surgery in 2021. Last night, Sir David's daughter, Katie, told me the comment was dangerous and heartbreaking. Well, the rappers released a statement after that interview. NECAP said this: "Establishment figures, desperate to silence us, have combed through hundreds of hours of footage and interviews, extracting a handful of words from months or years ago to manufacture moral hysteria. Let us be unequivocal. We do not and have never supported Hamas or Hezbollah. We condemn all attacks on civilians, always. It is never okay. We know this more than anyone, given our nation's history. We also reject any suggestion that we would seek to incite violence against any MP or individual, ever. An extract of footage deliberately taken out of all context is now being exploited and weaponised, as if it were a call to action. To the Amos and Cox families, we send our heartfelt apologies. We never intended to cause you hurt." Well, a little earlier, I spoke to Jo Cox's husband, Brendan, who says the group's statement is not enough.
When I was first told about this, I and was asked for a reaction to it, I wanted to check out whether it was taken out of context, whether it was a joke, not a very good joke, but some kind of joke. And so before I reacted to it, I went to check and looked at the full video. And what's clear is that it wasn't a joke, that it wasn't out of context, that it was incitement to violence against members of Parliament. And I think that in that context, their apology is not enough. The way that they have apologised is to say that it was taken out of context, that the reason that they are being called out for it is because they have outspoken views on other issues. Simply not the case. The reason they're being called out for it is because they have incited violence against sitting members of Parliament, and that is not acceptable. I think had they done the right thing and apologised fulsomely and not tried to explain it away, I would have had some understanding that, you know, youthful exuberance or whatever else. But I think their lack of depth in their apology, I think, is unfortunate.
Artists are allowed to have a political agenda, and you can agree with it, you can not agree with it. Often it is wrapped up in groups' art. But you feel that they've got this completely wrong. Like you said, they've tried to explain it away. There doesn't seem to be any explanation that will stand for you or the Amos family.
Yeah, and it's not just about the sort of, you know, the personal impact of it. I'm responding to this less because I'm sort of personally offended by it, and more because this is the wrong thing and an outrageous thing to say, and it sullies our politics. And that they have a responsibility, you know, that they have increasing popularity. I'd heard about them before this. They're increasing popularity, increasing platform, and with that comes a responsibility. And their radicalism in their politics is, again, something entirely for them, and they're entirely legitimate in exercising their views, whether that's about Gaza or about what they see as the British occupation of Northern Ireland. Entirely legitimate conversations to have and to be very outspoken on. But in, I think, trying to cultivate that reputation for radicalism, I think they have overstepped the mark in a frankly grotesque way. And what that has done is it's put them on the wrong side of people who might agree with them on lots of those issues. They might agree with them on the future of Northern Ireland. They might agree with them on the Irish language. They might agree with them on Gaza. But in inciting violence against members of Parliament, they have crossed the line into incitement, into driving political hatred, and that isn't acceptable. And again, as I say, had they done that as a one-off and they then came back and fulsomely apologised and didn't try to explain it away and suggested it was taken out of context or that this was some sort of establishment attack on them, I think we could be more understanding and more accepting of that apology. I think the fact that they haven't done that and they have tried to excuse themselves from it, I think is unfortunate and is a mistake. So I hope in this next period that they will take the opportunity to more genuinely accept that they have made a major mistake.
Is that the next step for you then, Brendan? Do you want a personal apology? Have they reached out to your family? This has been their public response. And as you've
I don't want a personal apology at all. I don't take this personally. I take this as a attack on our political system, an attack on our democracy.
So you want a better apology?
I want an apology which actually genuinely reflects on the fact that what they are trying to do in their language is to incite attacks against members of parliament who are democratically elected. And that is not acceptable. And it's not acceptable whether you're someone like me who has gone through the experience of losing someone that they love, or whether you're someone that just believes in the democracy that we have and that we sustain and that we need to build together. So it's not about I have no desire for a personal apology, but what I do want them to do genuinely is to wrestle with their conscience about the way that they talked about this. And I hope that it is a genuine mistake, that it is a desire to appear radical and they got too excited on stage and they said something stupid and wrong. And that they, if so, that they genuinely apologise for that and say, that was stupid, that was wrong, it was unforgivable, and we apologise. And I would accept that apology. But an apology that is saying that they were taken out of context and it's an establishment stitch-up isn't really an apology, I don't think.
Yeah, you want them to understand it, reassess, get it right, and move on, because there have now been calls for the group to be cancelled, calls for the group to be dropped from Glastonbury this summer. Eden Project have cancelled a gig they had scheduled for them in July. Also calls for them to be banned from radio playlists. Kemi Badenoch says she wants them banned full stop. Where do you stand on all of that?
I think it all depends on how they respond in the next few days and the next few weeks. I think I have a lot of understanding for people that make mistakes and do things that they regret and then genuinely apologise for those things and see the error of their ways. And if that is the case with this band, then I think, you know, in the tradition that is great about our country at times, that we forgive people for things that they've done where they've made mistakes and they've made errors, but that has to be a genuine remorsefulness. There has to be a genuine commitment not to do it again. And I think an account of what has changed in their thinking. I think the thing that is worrying is that, of course, there's the comments that they've made specifically about MPs, Tory MPs in particular, but they've also been accused of talking about Hamas, talking about Hezbollah in positive terms. And that suggests, I think, an undercurrent in their thinking, which is more supportive of violence in our politics. And I think that is, more of a concern and suggests a pattern of behaviour, which they, if they want to continue to have any public profile, has to change and has to stop now.
Jo Cox's husband, Brendan, there, and just to reiterate NECAP's statement that I read out before that interview, the group insists they have never supported Hamas or Hezbollah. Still to come here on the UK Tonight. Calls for male health workers to be allowed to carry out breast cancer screenings to help clear NHS waiting lists. Plus, what does the leader of the Conservatives think about the party's future? Kemi Badenoch has been speaking to our political editor, Beth Rigby, ahead of this week's local elections. And marking their 14th wedding anniversary in Scotland, William and Kate meet locals on the Isle of Man.
On May the 1st, people across the country will head to the polls.
There's a lot at stake.
A seat in Parliament, 1,600 council seats and 6 mayoral elections, all up for grabs.
Who will win the tight race in the Runcorn and Helsby by-election?
Join us for Vote 2025. The results live as they come in, analysis and reaction.
Get the full story fast on Sky News.
we've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
The Prince and Princess of Wales have been meeting locals on the Isle of Mull today, where their Royal Foundation is providing financial support for community projects. William and Kate are spending their 14th wedding anniversary on the Scottish island. Our royal correspondent, Laura Bundock, was travelling with them. How romantic.
They'd visited Mull as students. Now a trip back to picture postcard Tobermory. Since Kate's cancer diagnosis, we've rarely seen them out together. This, their first joint overnight visit in 2 years. It feels like a return to the old routine. A milestone in Kate's recovery, and a milestone too for the couple arriving on their 14th wedding anniversary. Donna's a resident and remembers their undergrad getaway.
I think it was a very special time for them because it was way before they got engaged, married and everything, and it's got very fond memories for them.
It's all about the nature and communities here in the Hebrides.
£5, please.
Among them, this family fish smoking business, Slice by Slice, now running for 50 years.
What we've been trying to achieve is we've been recognised for it, and it was really nice. I'm going to get emotional now, but yeah, we're really excited and really honoured to have them up. We're all a small business and we're just trying to kind of live a slow and happy life.
The couple keen to champion and sample rural island life.
For Kate in particular, this is a showcase of things close to her. She's recently spoken about the power of nature, the spiritual inner peace she's found reconnecting with the natural world. So coming here is both poignant and personal.
Mixing and mingling with the Mull crowds, in the melee and with extra resonance, Kate met cancer patient Jim Thornton.
My opening words in the conversation from one cancer survivor to another, well done. And there's one subject she raised, and that's, when you've been given a "you're cured" message from the doctor, although you are going through further checkups in the future, you almost feel alone, and she totally understood that.
In a world of uncertainty, these remote islands, a snapshot of serenity. Laura Bundock, Sky News, on the Isle of Mull.
A representative for the Duchess of Sussex has denied that Meghan is still using her HRH title. It comes after the Duchess appeared on a podcast with cosmetics company founder Jamie Kern-Lima, in which she thanked Meghan for a gift she had sent her, which included a card reading with compliments of HRH, the Duchess of Sussex. Meghan and Harry agreed to stop using that title when they stepped down as senior working royals in 2020. 3 people have been taken to hospital following a suspected gas explosion at a house near Bristol. Police were called to reports of an explosion in Yate just before 7 a.m. The house on Lancaster Road was destroyed in the incident and subsequent fire, which has now been extinguished. 40 people are evacuated from surrounding homes as a precaution. No one is believed to have suffered life-threatening injuries. Around 100 firefighters have helped to tackle a fire in Maida Vale, northwest London, after faulty equipment caused a fire at an electrical substation. 15 fire engines were called to Aberdeen Place just after 5:30 this morning. More than 80 people were evacuated from a nearby block of flats after part of a roof of a residential building also caught alight. Still to come here on the programme, should male health workers be allowed to carry out breast screening? Experts say they could help tackle a critical staffing shortage and cut NHS wait times. Plus, we'll be hearing about the mysterious humming sound that is haunting islanders in the Outer Hebrides.
The Yazidis are a very small religious group, and in 2014, ISIS seemed to have set about their destruction.
Chilling reports describe ISIL militants rounding up families, conducting mass executions, and enslaving Yazidi women.
Some Yazidi survivors refused to be beaten by ISIS. But the suffering of the Yazidis is far from over. 10 years of darkness on Sky News.
The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, has criticised calls for male health workers to be allowed to perform breast screenings. Currently, mammograms are the only health examination carried out on the NHS solely by female health workers. But the Society of Radiographers says male medics could help tackle workforce shortages and cut wait times. Well, Helen Addis is founder of National Breast Cancer Awareness Campaign Change and Check and is here to discuss this with me. Helen, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
It's always good to talk about mammograms on TV. Can't talk about checking your breasts enough, really, can you? And this issue seems to be divisive, but it's a good thing we're talking about it. Where do you stand on male radiographers? Because you've had a number of mammograms.
Yes, I have.
Through your treatment.
And had I not found my breast cancer early, I might not be sat here today. So the importance of early diagnosis is key. And the most successful way of getting an early diagnosis is through mammograms. They detect the smallest changes within the breast tissue. So that is the thought that some people might not be going to get their mammogram. Well, we already know that a third invited to come for a screening don't actually attend their screening. And my worry is if there are male radiographers, I appreciate that they are going to be super qualified, but is that to the detriment of women actually turning up for that appointment in the first place, where we are finding it difficult to get them through that door at the moment? I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I think it's worthwhile. I've not had a mammogram because you have to reach a certain age before you're called for one on the NHS.
That's right.
Remind me of the age.
So it's 50.
It's 50. So there will be a large portion of the audience tonight who will have not been called for one, who will not have gone, you know, checked themselves, found something and gone through that process earlier either. But it's worth explaining the process, because the argument I've heard a lot today is that women will go for a smear test, which is seen as possibly one of the most invasive procedures for a woman as part of their health checkups. They will go to a male health practitioner, no problem, male or female, that's just the way it is. Mammograms, not so. So it's worth explaining the process and why women may feel uncomfortable if a man is performing it.
Well, I've had both. I've had smears and I've obviously had mammograms and various breast checks. The difference with a smear test is the person conducting the smear test doesn't actually put their hands on your body. They don't touch your skin. They're using tools. A mammogram, I could only describe it as being manhandled. They have to physically touch your breasts to pull it in all sorts of different directions to get it onto the machine. In fact, I only had my mammogram done yesterday and thought at the time, as the lady was putting it and squishing it and moving it this way and that way and having to lean against me while she was getting the right angle, I thought, oh, I'm really glad it's a woman, because it would be really embarrassing to have to go through that.
Well, really intrusive and really
intrusive.
Intimate. And there has to be a lot of trust there when, like you said, you're being manhandled. And whereas a smear test can take minutes, a mammogram, depending on your body shape or, you know, how you're reacting to what's happening, can be quite a long, drawn-out process as well.
It can be. And I just wouldn't want anybody not to be going for fear that it is a male radiographer.
I did hear this being discussed on the radio this morning, and a response from a listener said, look, you know, when it comes to breast cancer and going to get checked out, and considering the struggles of the NHS, the wait times, you know, time is of the essence when it comes to any form of cancer, particularly breast cancer. You can't afford the luxury of saying, no, I don't want a male radiographer.
No, I would agree with that, but I think the decisions on this has to be patient-led, and I think when that invitation comes to go for your mammogram, there should be a tick box that says, are you happy having a male radiographer? You know, there's cultural reasons why women don't want to, religious reasons, embarrassment. To me,
trauma. You could be a survivor of sexual abuse or assault, and to have to go through something like that would be extremely traumatic.
Absolutely. And what about the male radiographers as well? You know, if anything were to come their way, if somebody were to say, oh, you touched me inappropriately, and it's very difficult.
You did do a poll on your Instagram account, @TittyGritty is your Insta handle. And what was the response? Because your followers are mainly from the cancer community, so it'd be interested to know what that poll told us.
That's right, yes. So they are from mainly within the cancer community. So I thought they would be much more in favour of just go and get it checked, doesn't matter, male,
by
female.
Any means necessary.
That's right. But 65% of my followers said, no, I wouldn't be happy. Only 35% said yes. And the majority put it down to, I would feel like I'm too vulnerable in that situation. I wouldn't want to be physically touched that way. I think it's our choice how we're checked. So, yeah, it's a tricky one.
It really is a tricky one, isn't it? Because, like you said, you want to get wait times down.
You do, and
for people to be screened.
Yeah, and the mammograms save, they think, about 1,300 lives every single year in the UK. So they are so important, as well as self-examination. Mine was caught through self-examination.
Well, look, it's a controversial talking point, it seems, today. But we are talking about mammograms and the importance of them on the TV, so that is a plus point. And before we go, Helen, how are you? Because you're 6 years on from diagnosis, and you found yours early by checking yourself, right?
By checking myself, and I found a lump, and I thought, oh, it must be hormonal, because I don't have any family history of it, relatively fit and well. I was 39. Also had 3 young kids, didn't have time for cancer. So, yeah, it wasn't a card that I ever thought I'd be dealt, but there we go. That's a case in point that you need to know you're normal, keep checking yourself, and anything unusual, go and see your GP.
Helen, thank you for coming in to see us. Helen Addis, founder of Change and Check campaign. You can find her on Instagram @TheTittyGritty. Helen, thank you so much. Thank you. Pleasure to see you. Now, we have heard from the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, a few times on tonight's programme. It's almost like there's an election in a couple of days. Ahead of Thursday's local elections, she has promised her party won't be stuck in opposition for decades. She's been speaking to our political editor, Beth Rigby. Badenoch saying that she wants the Tories to be back in number 10 in 4 years' time, but admitted there is a long road back to power.
Hi, George. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. A new leader trying to rebuild after her party's worst ever general election defeat.
Where does it start and stop? I can't quite work it out.
Kemi Badenoch out campaigning in the southwest, but it's not looking up. All bets off about whether the Tories have further to fall in this week's local elections. We're here in Wiltshire with Kemi Badenoch. She's on a campaign trip. Now, this is safe Tory territory, but the Conservatives are facing a drubbing in these local elections across England, squeezed by Reform on the right and the Lib Dems to the left. Kemi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
We are seeing a changing situation where you are being challenged both by Reform to the right. You're also being challenged by the Liberal Democrats. You've been asked about Reform a lot, but the Lib Dems are coming for you, aren't they?
Well, this is the same situation we were in about 10 years ago. 2014 local elections, UKIP did very well. We had Lib Dems and Labour. They've always been competitors. This is a very competitive political environment.
Body blow, though, wouldn't it?
But there's no. It's like a sailor complaining about the sea. We're in very choppy waters. It's a difficult time. There's no point me focusing on what other parties are doing. I have to focus on what I can do with my party. And we are in a process of renewal. We are rebuilding. We've just left government, a historic defeat. You don't just come back from that overnight. The last oppositions were 14 years, 13 years, 18 years. I've been the leader for 6 months. There's a long road ahead. I'm not going to let it be decades. I want to do this in 4 years, but that's a really tough job.
Badenoch believes she can revive the Conservative brand, but questions remain over whether she has the policies and personality to succeed. Let's talk about what you're offering, just on immigration quickly. Nigel Farage with a clear announcement last week, a deportations minister. He wants to deport all illegal migrants. You've talked about deporting foreign criminals. What's your view on deporting all illegal migrants? Would you look at that as a policy? Do you think that's a smart thing to do, or
Well, I heard the announcement that he made last week. We already have a deportations minister. That's the Home Secretary. This is the sort of thing that I describe as an announcement without a plan.
You're going to get smashed up in these elections, you know that. It's going to be a really rough ride for you on Friday. What's your message to colleagues? What's your message to them?
So what we want to see on Thursday is as many Conservative councillors winning as possible. That is all I'm talking about at the moment. I know it's going to be challenging, but people will have to live with what is elected after that. And that's something that Conservatives are going to have to think about. How do we make sure that we show that we are the best party on offer? And that's something that all of my colleagues agree with me on.
So what's your message? Hold your nerves? Hold your nerve?
Go out there and fight for every single vote.
Senior Tories bracing for big losses as Badenoch struggles to pull her party together and bring the public back. For now, she can blame the Conservatives' misfortunes on the past. She won't have that luxury the next time around. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Wiltshire.
Still to come here on the UK Tonight, hunting the mysterious Hebrides hum. We hear from islanders who are being driven mad by a mysterious sound. And we'll have a look at the day's sport, including tension ahead of another big fight in the world of boxing. All the details coming up.
This is how you travel when the mafia wants to kill you.
He's almost given up his own freedom, but that's the price he's willing to pay.
Here, they don't just arrest and 'Ndrangheta mafia members, they also live among them.
Time after time, I've seen the devastating impact of extreme weather and climate change.
We don't have much snow at the moment.
They've had a warm spring and exceptionally hot summer, and that means they're expecting to lose more than 3 times the amount of ice than they usually do.
Flames are still forcing people from their homes and leaving many questioning their futures.
Here was my life. We have nothing. I can't say anything, it's so sad.
This disaster is testing the resolve of everyone on this island.
The only way out now is by boat.
Everything you see is devastated, and the misery being felt by people living here is repeated in towns and villages across Central Europe.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Turkey is burying its dead. The loss is profound.
Whole families died in this collapse, generations wiped out. The violence has penetrated the heart of the city rather than being contained to the estates around the edge, and that speaks to the level of anger being felt here.
In Sweden, police have seized a lethal stash. This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
This is an example of an advert, really. Anyone of any age could say, I'll do that for £1 million, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
The Premier League run-in is live on NBC and streaming on Peacock, with crucial fixtures in the race for Europe. Saturday, Arsenal look to finish strong against Bournemouth.
Expect the unexpected.
Sunday, exclusively on Peacock, Champions League hopefuls Chelsea take on the Premier League champions Liverpool. This is the Premier League run-in, live on NBC and Peacock.
Hello, coming up, what is causing the mysterious hum that's being heard on the Hebrides? We'll speak to an islander to find out more. But first, David Reed is here with the sport. And we're talking about boxing. I don't know what it is about boxing bouts at the moment. They're coming along like buses. We've only just recovered from Eubank Ben. But there's another big one on the horizon and a press conference to announce it today.
Yeah, undisputed heavyweight fight coming to Wembley Stadium on the 19th of July. The man on the left there, Alexander Usyk, trying to become a 2-time undisputed heavyweight champion. And Daniel Dubois, the Londoner, is trying to take all of the belts. He already has the IBF and he's trying to take all of Alexander Usyk's belts. Now, a lot of the news conference today was centred around the first fight they fought before. This was back in August 2023. Usyk came out the winner of that with a knockdown in the 9th round, but that doesn't quite tell the whole story because Usyk, great fighter, has never been knocked down in his professional career, but he did hit the canvas against Dubois in their first fight. However, it was ruled by the referee at the time that it was an illegal strike. It was a low blow below the belt. Now, Usyk took his time to recover from that, as he's allowed to do during the fight. It took 4 or 5 minutes. Continued the fight, ended up winning it. The news conference today was around whether that was actually a low blow or whether the referee stepped in at the wrong time. This could well be the narrative building up to the second fight, by the way. This could be a continuing thing as to whether it was the right decision or the wrong decision, whether Dubois would have gone on to win it, whether Usyk would have gone on and won it anyway. But Usyk ended up bringing pictures with him to the press conference today.
Oh, right.
Showing
show and tell.
What he said, claimed absolutely unequivocally, it was a low blow. Let's stop the nonsense. I won it fair and square.
Do you know what? It's a good job they've got a fight coming up to settle it. Is Dubois a better fighter since that first fight? Because there's a lot of talk about that as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's had 3 fights since, and he's fought lots of different type of opponents, heavy hitters, big guys, ones where he's needed to come in and out and get into close range and fight them. Anthony Joshua was his most recent fight. And really, Joshua was never in the fight at Wembley Stadium. And he was absolutely all over Anthony Joshua. So I think the narrative at the moment was around the first fight. Was it a low blow? Was it not? But actually, it's taken away from 2 great fighters coming together at Wembley.
Another one to look forward to.
And let's get the rest of the sport tonight.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
It strikes me that it's changed an awful lot even in the last 10 or 15 years. It wasn't very long ago we had yourself, we had Sam Allardyce, Helen Pardew, Steve McLaren, Steve Bruce, Harry Redknapp, all of you competing amongst each other in the top division. And that was a decade and a half ago. It wasn't that long ago.
No.
So that seemed a heck of a change so quickly, doesn't it?
Well, you're talking about people pretty much the same sort of age as well, of course. You know, maybe that was a generation, wasn't it, you're talking of? You know, we were probably at quite an important part of our careers in that period, and after, with quite a long CV and a lot of clubs behind that we could refer to, which would suggest we can do this job. I mean, now, of course, you know, the focus is often on the younger coach, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that either. It's a young person's game, so I don't complain about that at all. But as a result, of course, when they're looking for a younger coach, these clubs, often they probably think they're going to find him abroad. The Premier League is becoming a force to itself. I mean, the amount of...
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Now, people living on the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides say they are being plagued by a mysterious humming sound. The low-frequency noise can reportedly be heard day and night right across the island. According to a Facebook group set up to monitor the hum, around 200 locals have reported hearing it. Well, let's speak now to Islander Marcus Hazel McGowan. Marcus, good of you to join us tonight. Perhaps you can describe to us what this mysterious sound sounds like.
Well, to most people, it doesn't sound like anything. It's just a feeling. It's like constantly being tapped on the shoulder or having somebody shout in your face. It's just a constant that's there. Most adults can't actually hear that low, so they miss it completely. And it's just awkward and uncomfortable. The people that can actually hear it, it's just like a really, really amplified version of what you would hear from your fridge freezer. It's that constant droning hum, but it's there all of the time and it's constant. We thought originally it was the power station, but it turns out that the repairs on that came and went and it wasn't that.
You're hearing it day and night. Are you hearing it now?
Yes.
So I'm just staying silent for a bit to see if I can hear it.
Oh, you won't. The monitors that you've got will not hear down that low, so you just wouldn't get it. But if you're in a cinema, you would hear it.
OK, so very frustrating for those who can. And I know that you've connected with other islanders that you've spoken to and you've set up a Facebook group. And there's over 200 of you. Mm-hmm. What can you do about this? Because obviously you're looking for the source, right?
Well, I'm actually just what we would call an incomer. I've only been here recently, so I got involved in this as soon as I found out about it, and I realised it was affecting me. But there's lots of people on the island that have been marking down on maps where they're hearing it. There's the local radio amateur community, which I'm a part of, is actually doing their part to actually see where the signal strength is the strongest, and we're actually mapping it on mobile phones now, thanks to apps that are available to everybody.
Yeah, you're amateur sleuths in trying to find the source. I mean, what do you do if you want to report a hum? Have you been to the police?
No, you don't go to the police. I think they would call that wasting police time. It's Ofcom and DEFRA that deal with this kind of thing. Anything to do with radio and that sort of thing goes directly to Ofcom, and anything to do with the environment and is scaring the fish off and things like that is DEFRA. Yeah. So that's where it's gone.
And what's been the reaction from them? Because obviously it is, well, it's not a nuisance to everyone, but it is a noise nuisance to quite a significant number of you.
Yeah, the problem is that it takes time for all of these organisations, because they're government departments, to actually get back to us. So whereas like when I'm talking to you, I get an instant response, but when I'm talking to somebody like them, they take it further up the tree, and an email can work from sort of 4 to 5 days to a month even. We don't know. We're just holding fire and talking to people. The one group I can say thank you to for coming back to us so quickly was SSEN. They have been absolutely amazing at liaising with us on this.
Well, listen, let's hope it gets fixed as quickly as possible because it is affecting huge parts of the community there. A persistent hum might not sound that urgent, but for those of you who can hear it constantly, I'm sure it very much is. Marcus, thank you there. Isle of Lewis resident experiencing a mysterious hum there on the island. Right, let's have a quick look at the weather, shall we?
The ideal atmosphere, whatever the altitude. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Largely dry, sunny and very warm for the next few days. Temperatures looking like they're going to peak on Thursday at 29 Celsius, that's 84 Fahrenheit. Most places fine and warm this evening, although there'll be misty low cloud affecting the far north, breezy in the southwest. Mostly clear overnight, a few fog patches developing, but the Northern Isles will keep the risk of more cloud with a little rain possible there. The Hebrides may see the odd light shower later. It will be exceptionally mild in places, chilly for some low-lying rural spots.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
That's all from the UK tonight. The world is up next. We'll see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Have a good evening.